Chosen one. I know how you're arriving here. Tired, empty, not expecting much, a little guarded. Part of you may even be thinking, here we go again, another video telling me I'm chosen. And yet something in you still clicked, not with excitement, but with quiet curiosity. That wasn't an accident. Chosen one, this moment was arranged. Not by an algorithm, not by chance, but by heaven's timing. You didn't come here looking for hype. You came here because your spirit is weary from carrying weight in silence, and you're standing at a threshold you can feel but haven't been able to explain. The confusion, the delay, the strange pressure you've been under, it was not punishment. It was preparation. God does not review a case unless a verdict is near. And right now you are standing at the edge of a supernatural shift, sudden elevation, divine provision, and an authorized transfer that was held back until you were ready to carry it. As it is written, the vision awaits its appointed time, but at the proper moment it will speak and not lie. That moment is closer than you think. Chosen one, stay with this word to the end. This message is not here to excite you. It's here to align you, to restore your confidence, and to prepare your heart for what heaven is releasing. If your spirit recognizes this moment, subscribe to stay connected, comment 777, and write the city where you're watching from as a declaration that you are present, ready and willing to let God's word settle deeply into your soul. Chosen one, before anything manifests in the visible, heaven always works in the invisible. And what you have been experiencing lately is not random disruption, it is divine rearrangement. I want to speak to you plainly, not from a distance, but as someone who has walked through seasons where nothing made sense on the surface, yet everything was being decided behind the scenes. There was a time in my own life when I felt mentally dismantled, not broken, dismantled. The beliefs that once kept me stable suddenly stopped working. The strategies that used to bring results felt ineffective. I questioned things I had accepted for years, not because I wanted to rebel, but because something inside me could no longer tolerate shallow answers. At the time, I thought I was losing clarity. In truth, I was being prepared to carry more than I had ever held before. Chosen one. If you have felt that same internal collapse, hear this clearly. God does not tear down without intention. When heaven prepares someone for an authorized wealth phase, the first thing it addresses is the framework of the mind. Old thinking cannot steward new provision. Old limitations cannot manage divine increase. So God begins by unsettling what no longer fits. You may have noticed that the way you think about money, work, success, or even yourself has changed. What once motivated you no longer excites you. What once felt safe now feels restrictive. This is not ingratitude, this is alignment. Heaven is removing outdated mental ceilings because the next phase of your life cannot operate under old permissions. I remember sitting alone one night, exhausted, realizing that even if opportunity came tomorrow, I was not the same person I used to be. The hunger to prove myself was gone. The desire to impress had faded. And that frightened me until I understood what God was doing. He was removing the need for validation before releasing provision, because wealth that comes from heaven is not given to soothe insecurity. It is entrusted to stabilize purpose. Chosen one. This is why your old thinking had to collapse. God is not interested in giving you more while you still measure yourself by less. When your identity stops being fueled by approval, heaven knows you are becoming trustworthy. And then came the second shift, the quiet disconnection. You didn't announce it, you didn't plan it. But slowly, life you once recognized stopped feeling like home. Conversations felt shallow, environments felt loud, routines felt heavy. Even people you loved no longer felt aligned with where your spirit was going, and you tried to push through it, telling yourself to be grateful, to be patient, to not overthink. But deep down, you knew you couldn't go back. Chosen one. This disconnection is not loss, it is separation. There is a moment in every divine elevation where God gently loosens your grip on what once sustained you. Not because it was evil, but because it has fulfilled its assignment. Heaven separates before it elevates, always. It is written that God brings us out before He brings us in, and that in-between space can feel lonely, confusing, even unsettling. I remember walking through seasons where my circle shrank without explanation. People didn't argue with me, they didn't betray me, they simply drifted. And at first I thought I had done something wrong. But later I understood God was protecting what was coming. Not everyone is authorized to walk with you into a wealth phase that carries spiritual responsibility. Chosen one. The isolation you felt was not rejection, it was preservation. Heaven was clearing noise so you could hear instruction. It was removing access so that when provision comes, it would not be siphoned by the wrong hands or influenced by the wrong voices. This is why your old life stopped fitting. You were never meant to drag old structures into a new season. God is intentional. He does not elevate people randomly. He reviews patterns. He observes responses. He watches how you handle silence, delay, and obscurity. And you passed tests you didn't even know you were taking. You stayed when it was easier to quit. You kept your integrity when no one was watching. You resisted shortcuts that would have cost you peace. You learned how to stand without applause. That matters in heaven. Chosen one. This is where many misunderstand the process. They think delay means denial. They assume disconnection means failure. But in truth, this is the evidence phase. This is the audit. Heaven does not authorize wealth until the environment is secure and the vessel is stable. And now, as your old thinking has been dismantled and your old life has been gently stripped away, something new is forming within you. Not urgency, clarity. Not desperation, discernment. You are no longer chasing, you are listening. I want you to pause and recognize this moment, not emotionally but spiritually. The restlessness you felt was not impatience, it was transition. The pressure was not punishment, it was positioning. You are not behind, you are right on time. Chosen one, stay present with this word. Let it settle. Let it confirm what your spirit has been sensing but couldn't articulate. Because what heaven authorizes next is never released to who you were, it is released to who you have become. Chosen one, after the separation comes the silence. And this is where many people misunderstand what God is doing. They think silence means abandonment. They assume that if nothing is happening outwardly, nothing is happening at all. But heaven does its most precise work in quiet places. What you stepped into was not emptiness, it was examination. There was a stretch of time in my own journey when everything went quiet at once. No breakthroughs, no confirmations, no dramatic doors opening, just stillness. And I remember asking God, not angrily, but honestly, what is happening? I wasn't asking for speed. I was asking for clarity, and the answer didn't come in words, it came in awareness. I began to see myself more clearly than ever before. Chosen one. The silence you've been in was not God withholding, it was God observing. Before heaven authorizes a new phase of wealth, it conducts a review of the heart, not to accuse you, but to protect you. Because sudden elevation without internal stability does not bless, it exposes. During that quiet season, you may have noticed something subtle but powerful. Your tolerance for chaos dropped. Things that once felt normal now felt draining. You stopped forcing conversations. You stopped chasing explanations. You began to value peace more than progress. That wasn't you becoming passive. That was discernment activating. I remember realizing one day that I no longer felt the need to defend myself. I didn't need to correct every misunderstanding. I didn't need to prove my intentions. And that was unfamiliar to me. I had lived so long trying to be understood that when the urge disappeared, it felt like something was missing. But what was missing wasn't purpose, it was ego. Chosen one ego must lose its voice before wealth can gain its assignment. God does not entrust increase to people who still need recognition to feel secure. He waits until silence no longer scares you, until obscurity no longer wounds you, until being unseen no longer feels like punishment. This is why the silence came when it did. You were being trained to hear God without noise, to trust direction without applause, to move without explanation. Because the wealth phase you are approaching will require discretion. It will require restraint. It will require maturity. And then something else began to shift. Your intuition started speaking louder than logic. You didn't have all the facts, but you knew when something was off. You couldn't explain why certain paths felt wrong, but your spirit refused to cooperate. Opportunities that looked good on paper didn't sit right in your chest. And instead of overriding that feeling, you listened. That was new for you. Chosen one, intuition is not emotion. It is spiritual intelligence. It is the part of you that has learned to recognize alignment before manifestation. When heaven prepares to shift your financial landscape, it sharpens your discernment first, because wealth multiplies whatever is already present. If confusion is present, confusion grows. But if clarity is present, clarity governs. I remember turning down something I had prayed for years earlier. On the surface, it made no sense. It looked like progress, but inside there was no peace. And for the first time I trusted that peace mattered more than appearance. Later I understood why. That opportunity would have tied me to systems that could not support what God was building next. Chosen one. You have been protected in ways you do not yet fully see. This is why your decision-making has slowed. Not because you're unsure, but because you're no longer impulsive. You don't move just because something is available. You move when it is aligned. That is a sign of readiness. Another change you may have noticed is the loss of urgency to prove anything to anyone. You stopped announcing your plans. You stopped over-explaining your delays. You stopped defending your pace. There is a quiet confidence growing in you, even if you wouldn't call it confidence yet. It feels more like steadiness. That steadiness is critical. Wealth phases authorized by heaven do not come with chaos attached. They come with order. They come with timing. They come with peace that confuses people who expected you to rush. I've seen people pray for increase while still being controlled by fear. And when money came, it amplified the fear instead of solving it. God is not careless with blessing. He waits until fear loosens its grip. Chosen one. The calm you've been feeling about the future is not indifference. It is trust being formed. You may not know the details. You may not see the path clearly. But the panic is gone. The desperation has faded. You no longer feel like you're running out of time. That is not accidental. There is a reason Scripture speaks of peace that surpasses understanding. That peace is not comfort, it is confirmation. It shows up when alignment is near. This is also why certain desires have left you. Things you once wanted badly no longer move you, not because you failed to get them, but because they no longer match who you are becoming. Your appetite has changed. Your taste has shifted. You are no longer drawn to what looks impressive. You are drawn to what feels true. Chosen one, this is not boredom, this is refinement. Heaven refines desire before it releases provision, because what you desire will determine how you steward what you receive, and God is preparing you to steward wisely. There were moments when I questioned myself during that phase. I wondered if I was becoming too quiet, too cautious, too detached. But looking back, I see that God was anchoring me, teaching me how to be still without stagnating, teaching me how to wait without weakening. You have been learning the same lessons. You stayed when others left. You listened instead of reacting. You chose restraint when ego wanted expression. You honored peace over pressure. And heaven took note. Chosen one. This is why the delay did not destroy you. It developed you. This is why the silence did not break you. It stabilized you. This is why the disconnection did not empty you. It prepared you. You are not waiting for something to begin. Something has already been decided. The shift you feel is not anticipation. It is alignment, catching up to reality. Stay with this moment. Stay grounded in this awareness. What God authorizes next will not require you to become someone new. It will require you to remain who you have already become. Chosen one. There is a moment in this journey when you realize you are no longer being shaped by pressure, but by permission. Not permission from people, not permission from systems, but permission from heaven. And that realization changes how you carry yourself. You stop striving. You stop rehearsing explanations. You stop forcing doors. Something inside you understands that what is meant to open will open without violence. This is where many get confused, because outwardly it may look like nothing has changed. You may still be in the same environment. You may still be waking up to the same responsibilities. But inwardly, everything has shifted. You are no longer fighting to become. You are learning how to stand. I remember a season when my life looked ordinary from the outside, but inside I felt anchored in a way I never had before. I wasn't chasing signs anymore. I wasn't bargaining with God. I wasn't asking for reassurance every other day. There was a quiet knowing that something had been settled, not announced settled. Chosen one, that same settling has been happening in you. This is why you stopped reacting the way you used to. Situations that once would have triggered anxiety now barely register. Words that once would have pulled you into defense now pass through without sticking. You're not numb, you're grounded. There is a difference. Grounded people are dangerous to chaos. Heaven does not authorize wealth to unstable ground. Before any increase comes, God establishes you internally so that external shifts don't move you out of alignment. This is why you were brought into stillness before expansion. Stillness reveals what noise was hiding. During this phase, you may have noticed that your prayers changed. You stopped asking for specific outcomes and started asking for alignment. You stopped telling God how to bless you and started trusting Him to do it His way. That is not resignation, that is maturity. I remember praying one night not for provision, but for wisdom. I didn't want money if it came with confusion. I didn't want opportunity if it came with compromise. And that prayer marked a turning point. Because when your priority becomes stewardship instead of speed, heaven leans in. Chosen one. This is what heaven has been watching. Not your words, but your posture. Not your declarations, but your discipline. How you move when no one is affirming you. How you wait when no one is watching. How you choose when there is no applause. And you chose well. This is why the need to prove yourself faded. You no longer feel the urge to announce your worth. You don't need external affirmation to confirm internal truth. That shift alone disqualifies you from many battles that drain others. When you stop needing validation, manipulation loses its power. This is also why some people around you seem unsettled by your presence now. You're not louder, you're not more dominant, but you're different. You carry a calm authority that doesn't seek control, and that unsettles environments built on pressure and performance. Chosen one authority that comes from alignment cannot be replicated. It cannot be faked. It is the byproduct of consistency in private, and heaven recognizes it. There is another sign that has been quietly confirming your readiness. Your relationship with time has changed. You no longer feel late. You no longer feel rushed. You may still desire progress, but it no longer comes with panic. You trust timing in a way that would have frustrated your past self. This is critical because wealth that comes from heaven operates on divine timing, not human urgency. When God authorizes a phase, He controls the pace. And those who are ready do not resist that pace, they respect it. I've seen people sabotage their own elevation because they were afraid of waiting. They forced doors open that God had intentionally kept closed. And when they stepped through prematurely, they inherited consequences instead of blessings. Chosen one. The fact that you waited even when it hurt matters. Another change you may have noticed is how you see money itself. It no longer feels like the solution to your identity. It feels like a tool. You're no longer fantasizing about what it would prove. You're thinking about what it would support. That shift is subtle, but it is everything. I remember when money stopped feeling like rescue and started feeling like responsibility. That was the moment I realized I was approaching a different kind of season. Not one built on survival, but one built on stewardship. Heaven does not fund ego, it funds assignment. This is why God had to bring you through a phase where nothing external could save you. You learned how to stand without backup. You learned how to trust without guarantees. You learned how to be faithful without reward. And those lessons formed something unshakable in you. Chosen one. You are not fragile anymore. You are flexible. You are not defensive. You are discerning. You are not desperate. You are deliberate. That is why opportunities will begin to recognize you, not because you chase them, but because you carry clarity. Alignment attracts what striving cannot. I want you to understand something important here. The wealth phase you are approaching is not designed to overwhelm you. It is designed to align with you. God does not shock His servants with blessing. He prepares them so thoroughly that when increase comes, it feels natural, even if it is significant. This is why you may feel strangely calm about something big approaching. That calm is not lack of excitement. It is readiness. It is the quiet confidence that comes when you know you've been prepared for what is next. There is a reason Scripture speaks about being faithful over little before being entrusted with much. Faithfulness is not about quantity, it is about consistency, and you have been consistent in ways that matter. You showed up when it was inconvenient. You stayed honest when it would have been easier to perform. You chose peace when chaos would have brought attention, and heaven records those choices. Chosen one. The phase you are in right now is not about accumulation, it is about authorization. Things are being approved in the unseen, access is being granted, doors are being aligned, not forced. Stay where you are internally, do not rush emotionally, do not leak information prematurely, do not downgrade your discernment to satisfy impatience. What God authorizes next will require you to remain grounded, not reactive, present, not performative, obedient, not anxious. You are not being asked to do more. You are being asked to remain aligned. because alignment is what carries weight when increase arrives. Stay steady, stay listening, stay surrendered. The posture you hold now is the posture that will carry you into what has already been decided. Chosen one. There comes a stage in this journey where the work is no longer about what you add, but what you release. Not because you are losing something valuable, but because you are making room for what can only arrive when your hands are empty. This is the stage that feels the most uncomfortable to the natural mind, yet the most familiar to the spirit. You may have noticed that certain attachments have quietly loosened their grip on you. Things you once held tightly no longer feel essential. Plans you were convinced you needed no longer carry urgency. Even identities you once defended no longer feel worth protecting. This is not confusion. This is refinement reaching its final layers. I remember a moment when I realized I was no longer emotionally attached to outcomes the way I used to be. Not because I didn't care, but because I trusted God's judgment more than my own preferences. That realization didn't come with excitement. It came with peace. And peace is often the signal that surrender has gone deep enough. Chosen one, surrender is not giving up control because you are weak. It is releasing control because you finally trust who is guiding you. Heaven does not authorize wealth to people who cling. It authorizes it to people who can hold loosely without fear of loss. This is why God allowed you to walk through seasons where things slipped away without explanation. You didn't fight to keep what was leaving. You didn't chase what was fading. You let it go even when it hurt. That was not passivity. That was obedience in its quietest form. You may have noticed that your emotional reactions have softened. You still feel deeply, but you no longer spiral. You no longer catastrophize. You no longer assume the worst when things don't move immediately. This emotional regulation is not accidental. It is required. I've seen people receive financial increase while still being emotionally reactive, and it destroyed their relationships, their health, and their clarity. God is too kind to do that to you. So he taught you how to remain steady under pressure before increasing the weight you carry. Chosen. One steadiness is currency in the kingdom. Another shift that marks this stage is your growing intolerance for anything that compromises your peace. You no longer rationalize environments that drain you. You no longer excuse patterns that disturb your spirit. You don't dramatize your exits, but you also don't negotiate your boundaries. I remember realizing that I didn't owe everyone access to me. That was a hard lesson because for a long time I confused availability with love. But God showed me that stewardship applies not only to money, but to energy, time, and focus. You cannot protect increase if you cannot protect your peace. Chosen one. This is why your circle has become smaller but stronger. Fewer voices, less interference, more clarity. You are not isolating, you are prioritizing, and heaven honors that. You may also have noticed a strange disinterest in comparison. You no longer measure your progress against others. You no longer feel threatened by someone else's success. In fact, you may even feel genuinely happy for them. That is a sign that scarcity has lost its grip on you. Scarcity thinking cannot steward abundance. So God gently removed it by teaching you contentment without stagnation. You learned how to be grateful without settling. That balance is rare. I remember watching others move ahead while I stayed still, and instead of resentment, I felt trust. Not because I was passive, but because I knew my timing was different. That trust was not natural, it was taught. Chosen one. You have learned to trust timing without seeing the full picture. That alone qualifies you for what is coming. There is another layer of surrender that often goes unnoticed, surrendering the need to understand everything. You stopped demanding explanations from God. You stopped asking for full blueprints. You learned to obey with partial information. This is critical because wealth phases authorized by heaven rarely come with full disclosure up front. They unfold step by step. Those who need certainty before obedience often miss alignment. I remember saying yes to things that didn't yet make sense, not because I was reckless, but because I recognized the voice guiding me. And every time I took one step, clarity met me there, not before, chosen. One clarity follows obedience, not the other way around. This is also why your faith now feels quieter but stronger. You don't feel the need to declare loudly what you believe. You live it. You don't argue theology. You embody trust. Your faith is no longer performative, it is practiced. Heaven recognizes lived faith. At this stage, you may feel a deep sense of inner order. Even if your external world hasn't fully shifted yet, your internal world is no longer chaotic. Thoughts feel organized. Priorities feel clear. Decisions feel cleaner. That order is intentional. God establishes order internally before releasing order externally. Wealth without order creates stress. Wealth with order creates stability. Chosen one, the order forming inside you is the infrastructure for what is coming. You may still have questions. You may still have moments of uncertainty. But notice this, you no longer feel lost. There is a difference between not knowing the details and not knowing yourself. You know who you are now. You know what you will and will not compromise. You know what matters. That self-knowledge is priceless. I remember reaching a point where even if nothing changed, I knew I would be okay. Not because I gave up hope, but because I was anchored. That anchoring didn't remove desire, it removed fear. And fear is often the final obstacle before authorization. Chosen one fear has been losing ground in you, slowly, quietly, without announcement. And heaven has been watching that process. This stage is not glamorous. It doesn't come with visible rewards. It comes with internal alignment. But internal alignment is what allows external increase to land without damage. You are not being emptied for loss. You are being emptied for filling, but not filling with noise, chaos, or ego. Filling with purpose, responsibility, and trust. Stay surrendered, stay grounded, stay attentive. The release you are approaching will not demand more striving. It will require more obedience. And obedience at this level is not about rules, it is about sensitivity. You are becoming sensitive to timing, to peace, to restraint, to instruction. That sensitivity is not weakness, it is spiritual strength. Chosen one. Everything being released from you now is creating capacity. And capacity is what heaven fills when it authorizes a new phase. Chosen one. There is a moment when heaven no longer prepares you quietly, but begins to confirm things subtly. Not with spectacle, not with public announcements, but with an inner assurance that feels settled and final. This is the stage where authorization is no longer theoretical. It is established. You may not have heard a voice. You may not have seen a sign in the sky. But something within you knows that a line has been crossed. Not forward in activity, but deeper in trust. You are no longer asking if God will move. You are adjusting yourself to how you will steward what He moves next. This is not excitement. It is sobriety. I remember the first time I realized that my prayers had changed from please to prepare me. That shift didn't come from confidence in myself. It came from confidence in God's consistency. I had seen Him too many times bring provision at the exact moment it was needed, not early, not late. That history built something solid inside me. Chosen one. You are standing on a similar history. Even if you haven't named it yet, you have evidence. moments when things worked out that shouldn't have, protection you didn't recognize until later, delays that saved you from outcomes you couldn't see at the time. These were not coincidences, they were rehearsals. God does not rehearse without intention. This is why your faith now feels grounded instead of emotional. You don't feel the need to convince yourself anymore. You don't need constant reminders. You trust God not because everything is perfect, but because you've seen His character. And character, not circumstance, is what faith rests on. Chosen One Heaven authorizes wealth to people who trust God's character more than their own calculations. Another sign that authorization is near is how you now respond to opportunity. You no longer grab at everything that looks promising. You evaluate, you wait, you sense. You don't confuse availability with assignment. I remember being offered things that would have looked impressive to others, but felt heavy to me. And for the first time, I had the courage to say no without guilt. Not because the opportunity was wrong, but because it wasn't right for me. That discernment didn't come overnight. It came from years of learning how to say no to myself before saying no to others. Chosen One, that discipline has been forming in you too. You've learned how to resist shortcuts. You've learned how to delay gratification. You've learned how to remain faithful without reward. These are not small lessons. They are the foundation of stewardship. Heaven does not release increase into hands that have not learned restraint. This is also why your sense of responsibility has deepened. You don't just think about what you want anymore. You think about impact, about sustainability, about alignment. You think beyond yourself, and that shift matters. Wealth that comes from heaven is never isolated. It is connected to people, purpose, and responsibility. God watches how you treat what you already have, not to judge you, but to measure readiness. How you manage time, how you manage peace, how you manage relationships. These are all currencies. Chosen One, you have been faithful in areas no one applauded. You honored commitments when no one enforced them. You kept integrity when it would have been easier to compromise. You chose long-term peace over short-term gain. Those choices were recorded. Another thing that changes in this stage is your relationship with fear. Fear doesn't disappear completely, but it no longer drives you. It no longer dictates your decisions. You acknowledge it, but you don't obey it. I remember feeling fear rise when things began to align. Fear of responsibility, fear of visibility, fear of loss. But instead of letting it stop me, I brought it into the light. I didn't pretend it wasn't there. I just refused to let it lead. Chosen One courage at this level is not loud. It is quiet obedience in the presence of fear. This is why heaven waits until fear loses its authority before authorizing wealth. Because fear will always mismanage increase. It will cling too tightly. It will hoard. It will rush. But you are no longer ruled by fear. You are ruled by discernment. There is also a noticeable shift in how you view obedience. It no longer feels like obligation. It feels like alignment. You don't obey because you're afraid of consequences. You obey because you recognize wisdom. I remember realizing that obedience was not about restriction, it was about protection. God wasn't withholding from me, He was preserving me. That understanding changed everything. Chosen One obedience has become relational for you, not transactional. You're not trying to earn blessing. You're responding to guidance. That posture is rare. You may also feel a growing sense of readiness that is difficult to explain. Not readiness to perform, but readiness to receive. You're not restless. You're attentive. You're not impatient. You're alert. This is the posture heaven responds to. Authorized wealth phases are not chaotic releases. They are intentional transitions. They come with clarity, not confusion. with responsibility, not recklessness, with peace, not pressure. This is why God did not rush you here. He took his time. He let you mature. He let you shed what could not go with you. He let you experience emptiness so you could recognize fullness without being intoxicated by it. Chosen one, you are not being set up for overwhelm. You are being positioned for stability. There is one final internal marker that confirms authorization: gratitude without anxiety. You are thankful for what you have without fearing its loss. You are hopeful about what is coming without being consumed by it. That balance is powerful. I remember realizing that I could hold blessings without gripping them, that I could enjoy provision without fearing its disappearance, that freedom did not come from abundance, it came from trust. Chosen one trust is the true indicator of readiness. You trust God with timing. You trust him with outcomes. You trust him with process. And because of that, you are able to remain present where you are without resentment. This is not stagnation. It is positioning. Heaven does not announce authorization with noise. It announces it with peace. And the peace you carry now is not accidental. It is confirmation. Stay attentive. Stay aligned. Stay obedient. What is authorized will arrive without panic, and when it does, you will recognize it not by excitement alone, but by the deep sense of rightness that settles in your spirit. That is how you will know. Chosen one, take a moment and let your spirit rest in what has been spoken. This was not information, it was confirmation. Heaven does not send a word like this unless movement is already underway. What you have been sensing, what has been quietly forming beneath the surface, is now aligned with its appointed time. You are not early. You are not late. You are standing in your Kairos moment. Anointed one, the authorization has already been granted in the unseen. What God approves cannot be delayed by opposition, confusion, or past seasons of lack. A supernatural transfer is in motion, ordered with precision, guided by wisdom, and protected by divine timing. It will not arrive with chaos, but with peace. It will not come to overwhelm you, but to establish you. Stay faithful in the posture you are in. Remain aligned with the flow of the anointing. Guard your peace, steward your obedience, and look ahead with gratitude, not anxiety, for what is about to manifest. As it is written, those who wait on the Lord are renewed with strength, and you are being renewed now. Chosen one, carry this word with reverence. If your spirit bears witness, you may quietly mark this moment by subscribing, by sharing, or by leaving a word of agreement below. But above all, stay ready. Heaven has spoken, and what has been authorized will unfold exactly as promised.